Okay, but no, it's at 7:30.
The bathroom and the shower.
Okay. Enjoy.
So that's the situation. Okay, I'm going to go through our sponsors and we'll get to our Gemara for today. Year of Learning, Dr. Paul Koenigsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koenigsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Labish, Ned Goldberg's cousin, Nisan Hara, Nisan ben Fardosa. Paul and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend, Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malcolm Mann, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. The many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Paris, Saratoga bat Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gitler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, Joel Sher, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Arav Akiva, Marsha Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Uriel ben Harav Shimon, the month of learning by Mel and Haran Haller, by Haran and Mel Haller, actually, in memory of her mother, Malka Rachel Bas Yehuda Leib. That's it. May Hashem is heaven Aliyah, Krank Rafia Vet Yeshiva Shem Atliya, and the Chol B'nai Israel a good Gaben Shtiar.
Annie, before you start, the question that Zev had at the end of the shir
Yes,
yesterday.
if you look at Rashi,
Oh.
okay, on that item, okay, on Nun Bet Amud Beis, in the Rashi where it starts the wide lines at the bottom of the Amud, Rashi has a reference there, Kates Knefaita de Shvi'it. Okay, so Rashi there says Dekel Ta'un, right? If you see that place, that the a palm tree, okay, Kafniot, that they need Kafniot, I understood being there, the branches, okay, that he had need of the branches. In other words, he really wasn't chopping down the tree. Vehein Tmarim Ktanim, says Rashi, these are small dates, Shelo Bishlu, and they were not ripe. V'katzatz Hadekel, and he cut down the tree, La'etzim, okay, for the wood. V'hifsid Kafniot. And then he would only really wind up losing in regards to the branches, not the tree itself. So that was Rashi's answer, Zev, to your question.
Kenny, on 52B, no 27.
Okay,
Also
I got to
says-
go back. Hold on a
Right.
second. 52B,
27.
yeah. 52B, 27, yeah. Okay, there's a Rashi. Although destroying fruit bearing is generally prohibited, one may feather them if they produce only a small amount of fruit. That's what Rashi is implying.
Right.
Similarly, if the wood of the tree is more valuable than its
Oh,
fruit, that's why it referred to hefsed,
right.
right? Cutting it down is permitted.
Right.
The case cutting down the tree is not considered destructive.
Right.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
Is there there's a general rule, and then there were exclusions.
right.
You just mentioned the
So
exclusions.
here, because of the question of hefsed,
Say,
right?
right.
So he would have had a multiple loss, okay, in between the fruit and the wood.
Food is not valuable, and the wood he wouldn't have, so. he
Right,
loses
so
everything.
that's the answer.
Right.
Okay, Zev?
Yeah.
Thank you, Marvin.
Okay.
Also,
You're
right,
welcome.
good question.
Thank you.
Marvin, good. Glad you were able to locate that. Okay. The edition of ArtScroll that I'm using is the paperback right now.
Uh-huh.
So it doesn't have the notes on the page of the Amud itself.
Uh-huh.
That's why I didn't catch that originally.
I just look back and
Good, very good. Okay, coming back now, we're on to Nun Gimel, right? Okay, where we got to a point on the top of Nun Gimel where we saw this issue. They stated, sorry, we have it wrong. Okay, that they said as follows, that he corrected him that the size, right? Rav Asi said boser, that was unripe grapes, and the girua, which is grape kernels or grape seeds, okay? Grape kernels, who pul halavan, right? That is like a white bean. The Gemara questioned, pul halavan salkadatach, do you really think that it's like a white bean? Ela ema shiuro kepul halavan. But say its size, its measure, was like that of a white bean.
white bean.
Okay, that's where we left off.
Right.
So picking up there, all right, on Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, about 4 lines down. Uman Shemat Le de Amar Boser En Smadar Lo. And who is it that would say, therefore, that if in regards to it was an unripe grape, that was, yes, acceptable, but if it was smadar, okay, which we said smadar was the grape buds, okay, that it's not acceptable? Rabbanan, he says, it's the rabbis. Ukatani, right, where they teach sha'ar kol ha'ilonot mishayotziu, where all other trees, once they, I'm going to say blossom, once they start to come out. Ela Rabbi Eli B'danistane Kates. Okay, but coming back then to that story that Zev asked about correctly, he says, what did he do? He was cutting down a male palm tree, okay, that didn't produce dates whatsoever. That's what he was cutting down. Okay, so that would be a whole nother answer to the question. Okay. All right. Now, Tanu Rabbanan, we've got a Braita, says the Gemara, that teaches Ochlin ba'anavin ad shichlu delayot shel ochel, that one is permitted. Remember, we said it had to be available in the field, okay, in terms of produce of Shvi. So now it's telling us that one may eat these particular items, in this case, grapes, until they're completed, or okay, until they're finished. What kind? The stunted grapes in the area of Ochel, that location. Im yesh me'ucharot mehen, and if there are stunted grapes still around after those are finished, ochlin alehen, one can eat from them. In other words, it's not just the geographic location. It's an issue of are such items, shvi'it produce, available, still to be eaten? And so now we go on. Ochlin b'zeitim ad sheyichle acharon shebetekoa. Okay? That one can eat olives until they're completely, what do we want to say, used up, devoured, okay, in the area until the last ones are eaten in the location of tekoa. Okay. Now, another example. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, ad sheyichle acharon shel gush chalav. And Rabbi Eliezer disagrees and says, no, until they are used up, until they're totally consumed from the area of Gush Chalav. That was slightly north of Tekoa, also in the Galilee. Okay, or lower Galilee, really. Kadei sheyehe ani yotzei ve'eno motzi lo benofo v'lo be'ikaro. Okay, what is his clarification, Rabbi Eliezer? Until a poor person, in other words, one could make him hefker, all right, that produce, and until a poor person can no longer find them either among the branches, right? And remember, we had the example on the previous Amud on the top of Nun Bet, that a question of whether it could be found among palm branches, but not among thorn bushes,
Right.
because then the animals could still get access to them. Okay? So if it's still found among the branches, those the right fruit could come off, but still there. Velo be'ikaro, nor could it be found among its root. Rova, in other words, a certain amount, right? A quarter of a kav. Ochlin begrogorot, and then we have a statement that says one could even eat dried figs, ad shiachlu pnei beit hani, until they were consumed totally in the area of Beit Hani. Okay? Again, another location. Okay? So these were places where apparently, okay, these produce were grown, okay, but it could be that they were still available. Now, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda, lo huskaru panei Beit Hani, it was not referred to the location of Page Beit Hani, to the, again, the dates of Beit Hani, Elil Inyan Ma'aser. In other words, he said that was only reference to those dates only in regards to Maaser, not necessarily in regards to being the time frame for eating a produce of Shavis. Ditznan, as taught elsewhere in a Mishnah, Page Beit Hani, the dates, okay, of Beit Hani, Va'ahine the Tuvina, and also dates found in the Tuvina area, Chayavin b'ma'aser, are obligated in tithing. Okay? So he disagrees then with that particular statement, okay, that was said by Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, we come now to a new statement. Ochlin b'tmarim, that people are able to eat tamarim, right? Figs, all right? Ad sheyichleh ha'acharon shebetzoar, until the last ones are consumed in the area of Tzoar. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Ochlin al shel ben hakifin. One can eat them so long, again, as they are found on the palm branches. Ve'ein ochlin al shel ben hashitzin. But one cannot eat them if they're only found in the thorn bushes. Again, similar to what we saw on the top of Nun Bet Amud Aleph, and Amud Beis, I'm sorry, okay, that there again it depends on accessibility.
Right.
Okay? Or minhe, but we find a contradiction here, says the Gemara. Ochlin ba'anavim ad haPesach. There's a braita that teaches that one could eat grapes up till Pesach time, bezeitin ad ha'atzeret, and eat olives until Shavuot, begrogarot, and dried figs ad Chanukah, up until Chanukah, bitmarim, and here's our case, which we saw there initially, right? What about that? Ad Purim, being able to eat, right, tamarim, okay, figs until Purim. Va'amar Rav Bivi, and then Rav Bivi says, Rabbi Yochanan tarte bratraita machlif. And according to Rav Bibi, Rabbi Yochanan reversed the last two items. Okay. Now, what does that imply? Okay. Idi v'idi chad shi'orahu. Okay. That therefore the two different statements would result in really having the same measurement. Okay. Right. But as a result, it's opposite what that other Braita says. Okay. No, they say have the same measurement. Okay. V'ibayat ema. Or if you want, I would say the follows. Hakatani behedya im yesh me'ucheret mehen ochlin alehen. Or we could argue that the one Braita teaches specifically that if there are any, I'm going to say remaining or later produce of Shvis still around, it implies one could eat other that same variety, from that variety. Now, the Gemara is going to continue now with a new Braita. And this new Braita, okay, as we continue, is going to again talk about, I'm going to say, in a sense, since we've talked about produce, it's going to talk about, and we referred to palm trees, thorn bushes, and things like that. It's going to tell us about other kinds of trees. And it may then inform us also more about what we saw previously in the Gemara about locations. Remember, we said the land of Israel was divided up into 3 locations, and each location was subdivided, and I use the term territories.
Right.
Okay? So it may tell us more or imply something about that as well. So the new Braita teaches, Tanya Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. This Braita is according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Siman laharim, and I'm going to translate siman here not as sign, okay, but as an aspect of mountainous areas. Milin, that's good for gall nut oaks. Okay, gall nuts are a certain kind of acorn. Okay, that is very good because worms get in it, and therefore they can produce appropriate ink or dye for tanning, okay, in mountainous regions. Okay, siman la'amakim, an aspect or sign regarding valleys, dikalim, that's for palm trees. Siman lenechalim, an aspect or a good sign regarding, let's say we'll call it streams, are kinim, reeds. Right? Remember, one would need a reed, okay, to be able to make some sort of utensil for writing. Okay, siman leshfela, an aspect, okay, or sign regarding the plain, Plain, flat area, but far from the coast. Shikma, that would be good for sycamore trees. Okay? And again, we'll see that come back. Va'afal pi she'ein raya ledavar, zecher ledavar. Even though there's no clear source to this idea, there is says the Gemara, a reminder, a memory device. Shne'amar, vayitain hamelech et hakesef b'Yerushalayim ka'avanim, ve'et ha'arazim natan keshikamim asher b'shvela larov. Right, that the king put money there, okay, in the city of Jerusalem, as much like stones, and the oaks were planted there similar to sycamores that grow in the shvela, grow in the plain. Okay. Now, clarifying siman laharim Milin, when we said that an aspect or sign of hill country was gall oaks, right? Siman la'amakim dekalim, okay, that an aspect or sign, okay, for valleys was palm trees. Nafkamina, what's the result of that? Labikurim, so that we know what's appropriate in terms of first fruits. Ditnan is taught elsewhere, ein mevi'in bikurim, ela mishivat haminim, that we don't bring, says a Braita, okay, first fruits, except from the 7 varieties special to Eretz Yisrael. V'lo midikalim shebaharim, and not from palm trees that grow in the mountainous regions. V'lo miperot sheba'amakim, nor from produce that grow in the valleys. Siman lenechalim kanim, where we say that there's an aspect or sign of streams for cane reeds, right? Nafkamina, what's the purpose of that? The Nachal Eitan, that shows us the example of the Nachal Eitan. Nachal Eitan was a dried up stream. And why was that important? Because we have, the Torah tell us that when we have a situation of Egel Arufa, where do we need to bring the animal? Okay, to a place where there is a dried up stream. Siman l'shvela, an aspect or sign of the plain. Shekama nafkamina, the mekach umemkar, right? That shikma, that sycamore trees, are used significantly for commerce. Okay? Now, says the Gemara, hashta da'atit lahachi, now that you've come to that, so to speak, conclusion, kulhu nami lemekach umemkar, all of these other examples also are beneficial or worthwhile to know because, for commerce purposes. Okay, and we finish that piece. We go on now to a new Mishnah. Now, we're still dealing with minhag and with various places that may have their own unique customs. Now, makom shenahagu lemkor behema daka lenochrim, a place, community that had the custom to sell small animals, in other words, sheep, lambs, things like that, to Gentiles, mochrin, we can sell it. We'll come back to the reason there's an issue here shortly. Makom shelo nahagu lemkor, and a place that had the custom not to sell those animals, ein mochrin, we do not sell. Okay? What's the reason? 2 possible explanations. One is that they might use the animals for idolatry, avodah zarah, right. The other is that they might use the animals, especially smaller animals like sheep or others, for bestiality.
Right.
Okay? And that's also prohibited. Okay. Now, going on in the Mishnah. Ubechol makom, and in all places, says our Mishnah, ein mochrim lehen behema gasa, we do not sell large animals like cows, for example. Okay, agalim, or like calves, v'sayachin, or like foals, shleimin, whether the animal is whole, in other words, healthy, ushvorin, or broken, okay, or wounded, damaged. Rabbi Yehuda, matir b'shvura, but Rabbi Yehuda permits the sale of those animals when they're damaged. Okay, perhaps he feels that they will not use those animals then for idolatrous purposes. Okay, Ben Batera matir basus, and Ben Batera permitted the sale of horses. horses weren't used for idolatrous purposes. They were used primarily for riding, okay? And it was only for that reason. Okay? Now, makom shenahagu le'echol tzli b'leilei psachim, says our Mishnah. Another example, in a place where they permitted them to eat roasted meat on the eve of Pesach, ochlin, it was permitted to eat it. Makom shenahagu shelo le'echol, and a place where they did not permit them to eat roasted meat. Why? Because perhaps it looked too much like the Korban Pesach, right? Ein ochlin, we do not permit them to eat. Okay, now Gemara, right? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, he says, Asur lo la'adam, sheyo'omar basar ze lepesachu. So the Gemara, notice, skips the whole Resha of our Mishnah and goes immediately to the Seifa, to the end part dealing with Pesach, and tells us that according to Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav, it is prohibited to specifically designate any roasted meat, okay, by declaring it basar zela pesachu, that this meat is for Pesach, because that sounds too similar to the designation of what they did during the time of the temple when the Korban Pesach was in existence, right? Why? Mepnei shenir'eh kemakdish behemto v'ochel kedashim b'chutz. Because it's similar, too similar to it's as if dedicating the animal and eating consecrated foodstuffs outside of the temple. Now, Amar Rav Papa, however, points out, clarification, Davka Basar. We're talking there about that prohibition of any similar phrase of dedication only in regards to meat. Aval chite, but if he says something similar in regards to wheat, there's no problem. Why? Because we understand what is his implication. The mintar lepischa ka'amar, that he was really talking about guarding that wheat. In other words, matzah shmura, okay, guarded wheat, designating it as guarded for the Pesach holiday. That's what he meant. So the Gemara asks, ubasar lo, and meat no, me tive. But we'll challenge this with the following story that Rav Yossi tells us. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Todus. Okay, Todus is the name Theodosius.
Hey,
Okay,
woke me up.
Ted, right? Which, by the way, is translated as Matityahu. Okay, right? Todus Ish Romi. He was the one of the heads of the Jewish community in Rome. Right? Hinhig et b'nei Romi le'echol gediim mikulasim b'leilei psachim. He established, I'm going to say, led the Jewish community in Rome to eat totally whole roasted lambs, okay, on the eve of Pesach. Now, Chazal says in this Gemara that at the time, Shalchulo, they sent him a message. Ilmale Todes ata, were you not Todes? Gazarnu alecha nidui, we would declare you in excommunication. Okay, remember we said that was stronger than a ban. Sha'ata ma'achil et Yisrael kedashim b'chutz, because you are encouraging Jewish people to eat as if consecrated food outside the temple area. Kodashim Salkadatach. Is it really consecrated, the Gemara asks? Ela Ema. I would say rather, let's go roll over. Karov laha'achil et Yisrael kodshim b'chutz. It's close to allowing Jewish people to eat consecrated items outside. Okay? Now, says the Gemara, mikulas en, if it's roasted, yes. She'en mikulas lo, and if it's not roasted whole, no. Amre, what did they say? Mikulas, it was roasted whole. Velo shana amar, and there's no difference. Lo shana lo amar, and it's no difference if he didn't say it. She'eno mikulas, even if it's not roasted. Now, peresh, it was specified, and yes. In other words, if the person specified it, that would be prohibited. Lo peresh, but if they didn't specify that it was like the korban, lo. Now, Gemara continues and questions this whole citation. Rav Acha matne la laha matnit Rabbi Shimon. And Rav Acha taught this particular Mishnah and the story connected with it of Totus, okay, according to the view of Rabbi Shimon. Okay, we're going to see in a second. Mat kifla Rav Sheshet, and Rav Sheshet challenged him, Rav Acha. Bishlema laman detani la Rabbi Yossi necha. That's acceptable if they taught it according to the view and explanation of Rabbi Yossi, fine. Ela laman dematne Rabbi Shimon, but according to the way of teaching it like Rabbi Shimon, mei necha, is it really acceptable? Vahatna, didn't we learn the following? Rabbi Shimon poter, that Rabbi Shimon exempted, shelo hitnadev kederech hamitnadvim, that he didn't, so to speak, volunteer it, give it over, as did other volunteers. In other words, he did not specifically say what it was. In other words, defining it as similar to the temple, dedicated item. Now, Amar le Ravina le Ravashi. So comes Ravina to ask Ravashi and tell him, Uman de matne la Rabbi Yossi me necha. And according to the one who teaches this in the perspective of Rabbi Yossi, is it really acceptable? V'ha'amar Rabba. And didn't Rabba say, Rabbi Shimon b'shitat Rabbi Yossi amra, that Rabbi Shimon actually taught it according to the view of Rabbi Yossi. Da'amar, who says as follows, Af b'gamar dvarav adam nitpas. Namely, that we have a problem here when we say, when a person makes a dedication and he's dedicating two items at the same time, do we only base that dedication on his latter words and only one item is truly dedicated? Or do we say his dedication applies to both items together? That's what we're raising about. In a statement of consecration, right, consisting of two parts, okay, that's the issue. Is it only the latter part, okay, that Rabbi Shimon said, Rabbi Meir says it's only the latter phrase, okay, or is it Rabbi Yossi says that it's both parts, okay, that Rabbi Shimon seems to say that. Now, my lav mid Rabbi Shimon savar la ke Rabbi Yossi, isn't it the fact, don't we say, then that Rabbi Shimon held the same opinion as Rabbi Yossi? Rabbi Yossi nami savar la ke Rabbi Shimon, and therefore the Rabbi Yossi must have held also the same view of Rabbi Shimon. Lo, no, says the Gemara. Rabbi Shimon savarla ka Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Shimon held like Rabbi Yossi. Velo Rabbi Yossi savarla ka Rabbi Shimon. But Rabbi Yossi did not hold, in our example, like Rabbi Shimon. Now, Gemara wants to go on and ask the question, coming back to the fact that we use that story about Todos, Ibayalahu. So they ask the following. This is a digression, but it's still connected. Todos, Ish Romi, this Theodosius of Rome, Gavra Rabba Hava, was he a great man? In other words, was he really learned? Was he a sage? O Baal Agrofin Hava? Or was he a violent man, a gangster, so to speak? And people were afraid then to put him into excommunication. Tashma, listen to the following. Braita, says the Gemara. Od zo darash Todas. We'll give you another example where Todas gave a drasha, and this should ideally tell us whether he was a sage or a not. He said, okay, Todas Ishromi. Mara'u Chananya, Mishael, Va'azariah. What was it by which Hananel, Mishael, Va'azariah, right? The three of them during the time of Daniel, okay, who gave up their lives, okay? Shemasru Atzman al Kiddush Hashem, all right? That they voluntarily gave up their lives, the Kivshan Ha'esh, into the
Fire, the furnace.
Furnace, right? Nasu Kal V'chomer. Okay, in other words, what his drasha was that they did a Kal V'chomer, an a fortiori argument in the Ba'atzman, on their own, regarding themselves, B'tsefardaim, regarding the frogs, based on the story of the plagues. Umat Sfardaim she'ein mitzuyin al kedushat Hashem, whereas frogs are not commanded in regards to the sanctification of God's name. Kativ baho, it's written about them. Uva'u va'alu b'veitecha ubetanu recha umish'arotecha, that they went up and they went in to the houses and the ovens and the kneading bowls. Okay, and here's his drasha. Ematai mish'arot mitsuyot eitzel tanur. When do we find that kneading bowls are commonly found near ovens? Have omer b'sha'a shahatanur cham. We would say at the time when the oven is warm. Anu shemitzuvin al kedushat Hashem. We who are commanded to sanctify Hashem's name, al achat kama v'chama. How much more so that therefore we should enter, so to speak, the oven, the furnace. So that's an implication, okay, that Todas was a sage, that he was able to darshan a kal v'chomer argument of such a nature. Now, Rabbi Yossi bar Avin Amar, okay, Rabbi Yossi bar Avin suggests the following. Matil Male'ai, okay, Lakis shel Talmidei Chachamim haya. No, that perhaps he wasn't a sage, but he was let's call it a well-established balabus. Okay? And what did he do? he would arrange for merchandise to be shared with sages so that they could open a business and therefore have a income while they were learning. He would go, so to speak, into partnership with them, a silent partner. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, as Rabbi Yochanan says, Kol hamatil mala'ai lakis talmidei chachamim, zoche v'yoshev b'yeshiva shel mala. Says Rabbi Yochanan, anyone who goes into partnership, shares merchandise with the sages, therefore it has a merit, and it's considered as if he sits in the academy on high. Shnei Amar, as it says, Ki b'tseil hachachma b'tseil hakesef. And the shade of the wisdom is the shade of money. Okay, our new Mishnah. Okay. Doing time-wise, okay. Now, again, back to our issue of minhag makom. Makom shenahagu, lahadlik et haner, b'leilei yom hakippurim. The location, the place where they had the custom to light a candle or a lamp on the eve of Yom Kippur. Okay. Madlikin, we light. Makom shenahagu shelo lahadlik, and in a place where they had the custom not to light, in madlikin, we do not light. Next part of the Mishnah. Umadlakin b'batei knesiot, but we do light candles or lamps in the synagogues, u'b'batei midrashot, and in the study halls, u'b'mavuot ha'afelin, and in the darkened alleyways, v'al gabei hacholin, and by the side of those who are ill. Gemara now. Tana, we teach as follows. Bein sha'amru lahadlik, whether they said to light, ubein sha'amru shelo lahadlik, or whether they said not to light, shnehem ledavar echad nitkavnu. Both of them, however, had the same intent, namely to fulfill a mitzvah. Amar Rav Yehoshua, says Rav Yehoshua, darash Rabba, says Rabba in a drasha, va'amech kulam tzadikim, la'olam yeshu aretz. Nation is righteous, they will inherit the land, etc. Bein she'amru lahadlik, uvein she'amru shelo lahadlik, shnehem lo nitkavnu, ela ledavar echad. Whether they said to light or not to light, okay, both of them did not intend for anything except for the fulfillment of a mitzvah. Amre Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, but Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Ein mevarchin al haor ela b'motzei Shabbat, ho'il v'tchilat briatohu. However, Rav Shmuel is saying that one doesn't say a blessing over that light except at the end of the holiday, at the end of Shabbat, Havdalah, since that was the occasion where we began understanding the formation of creation. Amarle Hahusaba, and a certain elder said to him, Ve'itema Rabba bar Chana, and others say it was Rabba bar Chana, Yashar, well said. V'chein amar Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yochanan said similarly. However, we find the following now. Ula hayarachiv chamra va'azil. Ula was, remember, he was again one of those sages who would travel back and forth, commute from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, and he would share the Torah of one community with the sages of another community. For that reason, Ula was very well respected and considered, okay, an important teacher. So Ula would ride a donkey and he would travel. Vahav Shakil Va'azil, and he would go back and forth, travel back and forth. Rabbi Abba Mimino, and traveling along with him at times was Rabbi Abba on his right side, Rabba Bar Bar Chana Mismolei, and Rabba Bar Bar Chana on his left side. Amarle, and they said to him, Rabbi Abba Le'ula, Rabbi Abba says to Ula, excuse me, Vadai the Amritu Mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan. Certainly, okay, is it clearly valid that it was said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Ein mevarchin al haor ela b'motzei Shabbat, ho'il utchilat briatohu, that one doesn't say a blessing on the beginning of the occasion. In other words, let's say Yom Kippur in this case, but only at the end, right, when we would make the Havdalah there, since that's the beginning of creation. Hadar Ula. Ula, so to speak, looked back. Chaza Bey Barabba Bar Bar Chana Bishut. And he looked at Rabba Bar Bar Chana with anger. Amarle, and he said to him, Ana lav aha amre. I on this didn't say. Ella aha amre. But on this is what I said. The Tane Tanakame de Rabbi Yochanan. That it was taught by a Tana before Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says as follows, Omer, Yom HaKippurim, Shechal liot b'Shabbat. If the Day of Atonement occurs on a Shabbos, Af b'makom she'amru shelo lahadlik, even in the place where they say not to light, madlikin mipnei kavod haShabbat. They light in, I'm going to say, in deference to the honor of the Shabbos. Va'ani Rabbi Yochanan batre, and Rabbi Yochanan answered after him, V'chachamim osrim, and the sages disagreed, forbade it. Amarle, and he said to him, Ada Tehei, okay, you are going to be the witness to this. Kari alei Rav Yosef. And Rav Yosef, in describing this incident, the story said, Mayim amukim eitza belev ish ve'ish tvuna yidlena. Okay, citing a pasuk that deep water is the wisdom in the heart of a man, and another man, the understanding will draw from it. We'll just go over a little bit. Mayim amukim eitza belev ish zeh. When we say that wisdom is like deep water, ula. Okay, zeh ula, that's ula. V'ish tvuna yidlena zeh. Okay, and when we say another person draws from it, zeh Rabba Bar Bar Chana. In other words, he understood why he gave him, so to speak, the dirty look. Ve'inhu keman savruha. Okay, and according to whom did he understand or hold it? Kiha de Amar Binyamin Bar Yafet. Like that which was said by Rabbi Binyamin Bar Yafet, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Mavarchim al Haor, Bein b'motzei Shabbat, Bein b'motzei Yom HaKippurim. Okay? That one does say a blessing on the light whether it is the end of Shabbat or the end of Yom Kippur. V'chein amad dabar. Okay, and that is where we say the issue stands, so to speak. That's where we're going to stop there. Okay, so we're going to see in a moment that tomorrow, okay, that there is a challenge to this. Okay, so again, I'm suggesting that we may start a little bit later at 8:45 tomorrow. We'll try to cover as much as we can. All right. And I will check with Andrea today about that